Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So how has the Science Congress been growing so far? Dr. Sudhir?
It was good. It was good. We had the first day, we had the physical inauguration by the Chief Minister. And there were three focal theme lectures. One was by a Nobel laureate. And second was by Professor V.K. Ramachandran, Planning Board Vice Chairman. And third was by the ISRO Chairman. So out of these, two were online and one was physical. But we were streaming it online through YouTube as well as Facebook. And all of the sessions we are conducting online because of the COVID restrictions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yesterday, Rajiv Kiri from ISER was there.
Oh, I see.
Rajiv, yes.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Vijay. Good morning, Vijay Kumar. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
The Nobel laureate's lecture was excellent on graphene.
Where's it?
Oh, the first day. That was
Who was it?
And Nobel laureate on graphene.
Yeah. Oh,
It was
okay.
excellent.
Very good.
Really enjoyed. Really enjoyed. Applications, the tremendous applications of graphene.
Vijay, are all the panel members online now?
They are joining, not all are not joined, but they are, I think they are joining, sir.
Okay, so it's already 10 o'clock, so we can wait for a few more minutes. Yeah.
Sir, Sabu Thomas sir will join later. Sir, he is having an official program now, and he told me that he will join during the course of our program.
Fine. How about VKD, sir?
VKD sir, sir.
VKD sir, illa, panel illa.
Sir, available.
Okay, fine.
Devamar, can you start now then?
I think we'll start, sir. We already have some 50 odd participants.
Let us be in time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Morning. Welcome to the PG Students Interactive session of the 34th Kerala Science Congress. PG Students Interactive Session is a special session in the Kerala Science Congress, which offers an opportunity to the bright postgraduate students in science and technology to interact with scientists and academicians in the country to clear their doubts, which will help them in pursuing their career and research in the right direction. So this year we got good response to the call. More than 600 students registered for the session. And today we are fortunate to have with us 11 eminent scientists and academicians from different areas of science and technology to interact with the students. And to welcome the distinguished experts and the participants, I invite Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Principal Scientist, KCST JNT PGRA, and also the convener of this committee to welcome.
Good morning, respected delegates, my dear colleague and dear students. A very good morning to one and all. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to this official commencement of PG Students Interactive Session of 34th Kerala Science Congress. We are going to witness one of the most academic and productive sessions of Kerala Science Congress. This event is organized to encourage students who opted both science and technology for their PG curriculum. This aim of this program is nothing but to encourage PG students and motivate them to select research in future career. Here we have 11 well recognized versatile scientific personalities in platform. They will answer the question raised by the student. We have more than 600 registered students. They are ready to participate and actively involved in discussion. I offer your passion and energy help us to unite and achieve our individual and group goals. Such eminent distinguished personalities have assembled here to disseminate their knowledge. I am sure they will answer the question raised by the students. My duty is to welcome all of you. First, I welcome Professor K.P. Sudhir, the Executive Vice President, Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment. Also, the Principal Secretary, Government of Kerala Science and Technology Department. Welcome, sir. Next, I welcome M.C. Dattan, the former Director of PSSC, and now the Scientific Advisor of Honorable Chief Minister of Kerala. Welcome, sir. Then I welcome Dr. Saji Govina, the Chairman of the 34th Kerala Science Congress and also the Vice Chancellor of the Digital University of Kerala. Welcome, sir. Next, I welcome Dr. Sabu Thomas, the Vice Chancellor, MG University. Welcome, sir. Now I welcome Dr. Rajashree M.S., Vice Chancellor, APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University. Welcome, madam. Then Dr. Suresh Das, the former Executive Vice President of Council. Sir, welcome, sir. Now I welcome Dr. Sadhananda, Director, Institute of Climate Change. Welcome, sir. Next, Dr. George Thomas, Chairman, Biodiversity Board. Welcome, sir. Then I welcome my teacher, G.M. Nair, former Professor and Head, Department of Botany, University of Kerala, and also the former Director of JNT BGRA. Welcome, sir. Now, Dr. K.P. Aravindan, former Professor, Department of Pathology, Medical College Hospital, Kozhikode. Welcome, sir. Next is Dr. V. Unnikrishnan, Professor and Head of the Physics Department, University of Kerala. Welcome, sir. I also welcome every participant, colleagues, committee members to this event and request you to actively involve in the interactive program. The organizing committee of 34th Kerala Science Congress is certainly grateful to all of you for accepting our invitation and taking time from your busy schedule to be a. Once again, on behalf of the organizing committee, I welcome every one of you to this event. And at this same time, I wish you all success in achieving your goals. Now I invite my colleague to manage this section. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. So before moving to the interaction, I request the distinguished experts to give a self-introduction and a nutshell information on your areas of specialization. I request Professor K.P. Sudhir, Executive Vice President, KCST, and also the President of the 34th Kerala Science Congress to address the gathering.
Thank you, Shafiq. Good morning, everyone. I basically was overwhelming response given by the students for this PG interaction.
Louder, a bit louder, please.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I was very happy to see the overwhelming response by the PG students of different disciplines for this PG interaction with the eminent scientists. Basically, this event will give information to the postgraduate students and motivate them for pursuing their higher education in different disciplines. I am Professor K.P. Sudhir, primarily a professor of civil engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. I've been with the Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment since 2019 on deputation basis as the Executive Vice President of the Council. And I'm also officiating as the Principal Secretary to Government of Kerala in the Department of Science and Technology. Well, my specialization is water resources engineering, primarily looking at the resource availability, management, and impact of climate change on water resources. So any student who is interested in pursuing career in these disciplines, I'll be able to help you and mentor you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. M.C. Dattan, sir, Mentor Science to the Honorable Chief Minister and the former Director of VSSE to address the participants.
Good morning to you all. I am M. Chandra Dattan, known as MC Dattan. I was in ISRO for a long period, and from after retirement in 2015, 2016 onwards, I am with the Chief Minister of Kerala, and with the CM as a supporting man for the scientific activities. I don't have a syllabus now. That is the problem. So when whatever he marks, I have to read and understand and discuss with him. So has become, all kind of subjects. But my original field of work was in space technology and space research for a longer period. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Saji Gopinath, Vice Chancellor, Kerala University of Digital Sciences, Innovation and Technology, and also the Chairman of the 34th Kerala Science Congress to address the participants.
Good morning. Very happy to be a part of this event. Myself, Saji Gopinath, I'm primarily a professor in the area of management science, operations at Indian Institute of Management, Ecological. I've spent almost around 20 years there. For last 5 years, I'm working with Government of Kerala. For last 5 years, initially as Director of Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management, and later that has been converted into Kerala Digital University. So we are a university which focuses on looking at research talent in the newer areas like blockchain, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and also looking at how we can translate digital technologies into various fields. So some of you are interested in combining your postgraduate studies with digital and related aspects, or something related to management and related areas. I'll be very happy to interact with you. I wish you a very great time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Suresh Das, former Executive Vice President, KCST, and the former Director of CSIR, to address the students.
Thank you. And good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Sudhir and the organizers for this opportunity to interact with the students. It's always a pleasure to interact with students who I think are the future of hold the future of the world and the country in their hands. I was, formerly with the CSIR National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology in Trivandrum. And then for a short time, I was with the Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment as the EVP. Currently, I am an emeritus professor at the Indian Institute for Science, Education and Research. My basic subject is, of course, chemistry, and specialty was photochemistry. But more recently, I have been interested in the social responsibility of science and scientists. And I was very happy to see that this council, the Science Congress this year had a special session on that. So those are my current interests, apart, of course, from teaching chemistry and photochemistry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Sabu Thomas, Vice Chancellor, Mahatma Gandhi University, to address the gathering.
Very good morning to all of you. I congratulate first Professor Sudhir in organizing such an interesting session for interacting with the master students. I'm right now the Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi University, and my areas of interest include polymer science and nanoscience, nanotechnology. And I have a very good laboratory in polymer science and nanotechnology. And I'm very pleased to have our master students, maybe project work, internship. You're all welcome to work with me. I have many postdocs, PhD students with me, and a full-fledged laboratory. And we have a large number of international collaborations, probably around 50 collaborations we are running now with many countries. So those who want to interact with me, work with me, most welcome to my laboratory. And I'm very happy to support all the master students who are interested in polymer science and nanoscience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Rajashree MS, Vice Chancellor, APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University, to address the gathering.
Good morning, all the distinguished personalities. Thank you, Dr. Sudhir and team, for this opportunity. Last year also, I was part of this. Coming to my expertise, I am a professor in computer science, and my research is also along these lines: security, cloud computing, design of large-scale software architecture. So it spans several areas, but more than showcasing my expertise in this field, I would like to call your attention to the scope of research opportunities available in APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University. I'm representing that university. Now, I'm the Vice Chancellor of the university for the past 3 years, and we have 145, all the engineering colleges of the state affiliated to this university, and 40 of the engineering colleges are approved research centers under KTU. Around 600 scholars, more than 600 scholars are pursuing their PhD now, and there are more than 600 approved guides in the university. We have engineering subjects, management subjects, and also science subjects. The university is responsible for the admission process and the whole research process. And presently, our focus is to widen the research to more of applied research, which is essentially something which can directly create businesses, solve problems, and directly interact with industry. With this focus, the syndicate of the university has approved more number of research scholarships this year, and this is going to be a game changer for the state. And in this context, we are also interacting with all the government organizations and other research organizations in the state to draw expertise in terms of co-guides and also bringing in real problems where the students can work on. We have felt that there is a wide gap between the kind of research that is happening in the academia and the problems that needs to be addressed in the industry, government, and other organizations. One of the major focus we have seen is the public sector undertakings of the state, and there are several other opportunities like departments for us to work with. So we have initiated a small digital portal kind of thing, which is a facilitator and an enabler for these kind of projects to bring in problems and connect this to expert faculty members and students to take them and work on. So we are keen to take this forward, and whoever is looking for this can apply for this. We have a process which is as per the UGC norms for taking students into the research, and the research is also very time bound in the sense that the entire portal manages the research scholars life cycle, the meetings, everything is managed, and then even the guides are able to access the documents digitally, and it's completely enabled through digital platform. This we have large number of opportunities, a great opportunity for changing the focus of research in engineering sciences in the state of Kerala, and I'm looking forward to that. Your inputs, I would like to expose you to this opportunity. There are also faculty members in science in these research centers where interdisciplinary research can be fostered. Thank you.
Madam, now I request Dr. G.M. Nair, Honorable Director, Central Laboratory for Instrumentation and Facilitation, University of Kerala, and the former Director of JNTBGRI, to address the students.
Good morning, all of you, distinguished panelists. Thank you, Sudhir, for nominating me as one of the experts. I've been associated with the Science Congress and the PG Interaction in particular ever since the PG Interaction was started. So maybe that I'm so happy that I could be a part this year too. It's an exciting process. It's an exciting process where we are in a position to talk to a number of students across the state of Kerala. I am Professor G.M. Nair, currently Director of Central Laboratory for Instrumentation and Facilitation Center in the University of Kerala. This center caters to the need of the students, the researchers, faculty for the instrumentation needs. Not only that we facilitate their instrumentation needs, but also we give them training, in-house training on high-end equipments which are housed in one campus. Formerly, I was with the Kerala University also as Botany and Biotechnology department. In between, for about 4 years, I was Director of Pedagogical Research Institute. And after superannuating from the University, I went to Central University of Kerala, worked there for almost 4 years as Dean Faculty of Biological Sciences. And then I was associated with the Kerala State Science and Technology as advisor to the Kerala Biotechnology Commission. Now I've come back again to the university. I have two institutions being managed. One is this Central Laboratory, CLIF, it's being called. The other is the Inter-University Center for Genomics and Gene Technology, a prestigious genomics center, where we look into the genomics of different organisms, plants, animals, and microorganisms. We have about 15-20 research scholars and research associates working. The central laboratory is open to all the people whomsoever needs to have an instrumentation backing, any kind of high-end instrumentation. We are also adding up, we have about 23 high-end equipment present, well managed with qualified technicians, and we'll be adding up a few more equipment, including an HRTM, high resolution transmission electron microscope shortly. So about 10 equipments will be added this year. So I'm sure that this is a great opportunity for the students to redefine their research programs by using the high-end technology for making quality publications as well as to get great inferences. Thank you very much once again, Professor Sudhir, for choosing me as one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. C. George Thomas, Chairman, Kerala State Biodiversity Board, for the opening remarks.
Of you, distinguished panelists, and my dear PG students. I had been with the Kerala Agricultural University for a long time and retired as the Professor and Head Department of Agronomy and Dean College of Agriculture at Thrissur. Presently, I am the Chairman, Kerala State Biodiversity Board, and a brief period, I also worked as the Director of Research, Integrated Rural Technology Center of Kerala Shastra. My specialization agriculture, there is a subject agronomy, which mainly deals with the agronomy of tropical crops, water management, and I also have some interest in, especially my present board, biodiversity and agrobiodiversity. Well, I was also a teacher for an interdisciplinary area, research methodology and scientific writing. Probably some of the PG students who are attending may have seen my book on research methodology. Happy to interact with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Sadananda Pai, Director, Institute of Climate Change Studies, to address the gathering.
Good morning to all of you. I am D. Shivananda Pai, Director, Institute of Climate Change Studies, currently on deputation from India Meteorological Department. I have got a long experience working in the operational weather and climate services with the India Meteorological Department. My field of expertise is weather and climate services, climate variability, climate prediction, climate change, and climate applications. Dear friends, this field is of a multidisciplinary field. That means anybody working in any discipline have got a scope to contribute in this field, whether in the instrumentation, modeling, high power computing system, climate application to various sectors. And there are, as you know, the climate change has got currently large opportunity, not only in Kerala, within our institute, and also within the country, and also all over the globe. So you are most welcome. If you want to know anything about weather and climate application or services, I will be very happy to provide you information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Unnikrishnan Nair, former Professor, University of Kerala, for opening remarks.
Esteemed members of the panel of experts and dear students, my basic subject is physics, and I am connected with not only physics and also the spectroscopy was my subject, and also lasers. And fabrication of the lasers was one thing which I attempted earlier, and its applications. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please come.
So I am continuing as the spectroscopist and the laser applications, and became professor in the Department of Physics of the Kerala University. And in 1995, started a new Department of Optoelectronics in the Kerala University, and was professor and head there. And I retired in 2001, but continuing my academic activities even now. I am teaching even now, and I was a visiting professor in the ISER, and later also I am continuing in the Kerala University, and my field is physics and especially optoelectronics, that is applications of lasers or light sources and its applications. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So the floor is now open for interaction. Participants can ask their question either by unmuting themselves, followed by a self-introduction, or they can even post the questions in the chat box and we will read it out. If possible, please specify to whom the question is posed. Participants are requested to ask questions.
probably they may have a starting block. I hope so. Some of these smart students, they can ask questions. So others will follow suit.
Sir, we got a question. Can a hydrodynamic model be used to calibrate a rainfall runoff model?
Slightly louder. You just tell a bit more louder. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, can a hydrodynamic model be used to calibrate a rainfall runoff model?
Well, I think the question probably is directed to me. Rainfall runoff models are generally a translation of the rainfall into runoff. There are different kinds of models. One of them, actually in a rainfall runoff model, hydrodynamic model also is a part of it. Basically, hydrodynamic models are used for routing the flow from the upstream locations to the downstream locations. So if you ask hydrodynamic models can be used for the calibration, since the model itself is a part of the hydrological model. Rainfall runoff models are known as hydrological models. So probably calibration is not possible with the model. What we normally do is we take observations in the field, the real measurements, and these measurements are used for calibrating the model, where the parameters can be fine-tuned for simulating the process as much as close to the observations. That is how the calibration is done. In any kind of models, that is the way we do. I hope I have clarified the question.
Thank you, sir. Any other question?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Hello, sir. Very good morning to one and all. Sir, myself, Krishna Prasad. I am working as a project scientist in IPREC KCST. So I just have a small question regarding the something related to the space science, sir. Actually, I have read somewhere that NASA has bought a pen which can be used in the space. So my question is, sir, why can't they use the pencil for means writing or having some written work in the space? Why they have means by paying millions of money for purchasing a pen? Actually, the same questions were one asked in a Hindi movie also. So, but I didn't got a better answer from that movie. So I just want to know, sir.
Can you repeat the question once more? Because the beginning was not clear.
Yeah, sir. Sir, actually, I have read in an article that NASA has purchased an pen for writing in a location like vacuum or in a space. But my question is, sir, why they not introduced a pencil instead of pen? Because we can use the pencil for writing purpose in space also. But why they have purchased by means by buying by means by giving this much of money for such an pen?
See, in space, maybe like ISS, like, space station, etc. If you wanted to write, the only difference is the gravity effect. Isn't that, Dr. Undigeshan?
Yes,
So
yes.
for the gravity effect, when you are talking, using a pencil, of course, is a comparatively simpler things. As you rightly pointed out, it may not have much problem except application of the force. But the flow of fluid, ink through the pen becomes a bit difficult. See, it may not be the writing part alone. It may be a study or an experiment and do the effect of a fluid, passing through a particular small opening or a nozzle, and how uniformly it works. That should have been the thing. The purpose, the writing may not be the real, end application. That is what I am thinking. I pursue. Dr. Undigeshan,
Could
will
I-
be able
could I-
to talk something more.
Yeah, could I join the discussion?
So Okay.
Hello. Could I join the discussion?
Okay.
Yeah. Krishna Prasad, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Krishna Prasad. I think this, the purpose of this question was, I don't know if it is actually, it's a true story that people used an expensive pen and pencil. But the point was that, sometimes when you do research in an area, you become an expert. And when a problem arises, sometimes you forget to see simple solutions to that problem. I think that is the point of that story. So when a pencil was available, so, in the space, of course, a ballpoint pen or some conventional pen wouldn't work. So they were trying to invent something which was more elaborate. But not many people at that time thought about the pencil. So I think this is just an example to show that sometimes you get so involved in your expertise area that you forget sometimes that some of the most basic solutions are available to solve sometimes so-called complicated problems. I think this is just an example for that. I don't know if it is a real story or a true story, but that is how I see that. Right?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
It happens to many people in many fields.
See, gravitation will not work in the case of the space
Right. So, yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
therefore, the pencil will be a better choice. And I remember one experiment conducted and suggested by a student. All of you must know that why not you send a spider to the spacecraft? In the satellite, a spider was put, and whether he will be forming the net, that is a question, because there spider will be falling down using the gravitation, and whether he will be able to do it. That question was put by a student, I remember. So in the case of the pen also, the same thing. Ordinary pens may not work. You have to have special pens or pencils in the space. Is it clear to you?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear, sir. Clear. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that, sometimes, the pencil could flake and break off. And it could be also dangerous to the astronauts. That could be also one of the reasons, because we had a speaker from NASA some time back, and we asked a question. And the NASA scientist said, sometimes it's dangerous to the health of the people, and also flammability also is another important factor, he said. There are a lot of factors, that is why they moved to a pen. That's what the NASA scientists told us. Such a similar question was raised when the NASA scientists came to MGU a few years ago. The pen, that's the first time I'm listening such a question. And the NASA scientists said, the flammability issue and the pencil could be, it can become in small pieces and it could be dangerous to the astronauts. So he mentioned many answers to this. Probably we have to look at all these points.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for the valuable information. Thank you.
We have another question regarding what are the security benefits of cloud computing?
Please, louder, please.
Sir, what are the security benefits of cloud computing?
Can I answer the question, or is there some?
Please go ahead, madam.
Yeah, so cloud computing, basically it is a paradigm of computing where we don't have individual computing resources, but we have centralized resources, which we refer to as a cloud. So cloud will be providing everything as a service to the people who are looking for it. Like if you want a platform or if you want a machine to perform a computation, that machine will be provided to you as a service, virtual machine. It will be configured and given to you. You don't have to manage the whole infrastructure when such infrastructure is provided as a service. Similarly, software that is used in the cloud computing system will also be provided as a service to you. So it will be a pay-as-you-go model. Like if I want to use, in my university, I'm managing all the activities in in the using computers like result processing, everything, managing large amount of data. But it is not by my own computing resources, but I use the state data center, which will be providing that facility for me. Or I can also use a cloud from a private service provider where I can store my data and do everything. So what is special here is, as a user, we are not concerned about the whole set of other services like the one you mentioned, security services, which will be managed, which will be provided by the service provider in himself. So that is the broad answer to the question, the security benefits. We don't have to put everything in place. For example, since I'm using, putting my applications in the state data center, the application security will be managed by the provisioning of security services there, which is very well defined and configured there. So for my application to reside in the cloud, to provide the services to my university stakeholders, the security as a whole is managed by the service provider. That is how we look at it, and not going into the technical details, but it will be provided by the cloud computing, that paradigm itself. In that sense, as a user, I don't have to bother about the security of my application. If a student is availing a service, is there going to be a security breach? Is it going to affect the other part of the services or other part of the applications or other part of the data that is being stored in the database servers? So everything is controlled by the facility that is provided by the data center, where enough tests are done as per the testing protocols. Does that answer the question?
Just to add to what Madam said, once you have a centralized system, you can actually use much more expensive and more sophisticated tools. When I'm doing it a distributed computing, my cost will be very high. So once you are in a cloud environment, your security protocols can actually be much, much stronger. However, the one challenge is that if you are actually transferring the data for these applications, that transfer security has to be taken care of, which today you already have methods for that. So you may, in some cases, you may use very, very private network for transfer. Some other cases you will use other models of secure transfer as such. But otherwise, when you are looking at very sophisticated applications where you require multi-layers of security, many times having a distributed model may not be a very great idea. That's basically where you go for a cloud aspect as such.
Thank you, Madam and Sir. We have another question, like, what do you mean by engineering plastics? Engineering plastics.
Okay. Thank you. Sabu Thomas will answer this question. The very definition of engineering plastics is plastics that can function like a metal. That's the meaning of engineering plastics. In order to elaborate further, the best engineering plastics is nylon. Nylon can do all the functions of metal. Good example is nylon gears. Usually gears are made of metal, but now gears are being replaced by nylons. You know why? It's lighter, it never corrodes, and it is self-lubricating because nylon can absorb water from atmosphere by hydrogen bonding. So nylon gears are self-lubricating. So polymers which can do the function of a metal, very similar to metal, we call the engineering polymers. And the best way of looking at the engineering polymer is look at the stress-strain behavior. If you look at the stress-strain behavior, like nylon, you have a linear elastic part initially, and then you have plastic deformation. Is that answer? Do you have any further question? Is it okay for you, the candidate? There are many polymers. Polyacetal is an engineering polymer. Polysulfone is an engineering polymer.
I will add to it because for engineering applications, the composite material is already derived from the plastics and polymers. It's a combination of materials which make a composite, especially for application where the strength should be high and the weight should be low. For aerospace applications, a lot of composite materials are being used where the polymer part or the matrix part goes for a system and there will be a reinforcing system. So it's a combination of 2 or 3 different materials which imparts, higher strength, lower density, surface resistance, such many applications which is required for the engineering. I think composite technology has come to a very high level of sophistication now, where all engineering applications for manufacturing it is being used, and also for the 3D manufacturing system also it is very useful for making complicated shapes and contours with the simple computer applications.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. What is the role of nanomaterials in mechanical engineering? Role of nanomaterials in mechanical engineering.
Nanomaterials have a very strong role in mechanical engineering. I can give you a small example. If you look at the tire engineering, tire is a very complicated product. Now we make use of nanotechnology in tire engineering. You know what we do? We incorporate nanoparticles in tire tread or tire inner liners. Therefore, the amount of nanomaterial like carbon nanotube or clay or nanocellulose, which usually require is only 5%. Normally the tires are black because you have a lot of carbon black, around 50 to 60% of carbon black. And if you use nanomaterials for engineering applications, you get very high modulus, very high mechanical strength, and you can make lighter and thinner products. That's the advantage. Now the world is moving towards more lighter and thinner products. So high strength, high modulus, high efficiency, lightweight, and you can make it very thinner.
Sir, I just want to ask one question regarding the nanomaterials also, sir. Myself, Krishna Prasad.
Yes.
Sir, it's clear that the nanomaterials are having a vast application not only in the mechanical field, but also in some other fields, all other fields also. But sir,
yes,
can this nanomaterials can be used to tackle the issues of environmental pollution, such as air pollution? Can we means observe or can we react with the pollutants by making a suitable nanomaterial so that we can we can decrease the level of pollution? Is it possible, sir?
Very important question. One of the important roles of
I think we lost Dr. Sabu Thomas.
Yeah. Some technical issue.
Dr. Sabu Thomas, we can't hear you. Yeah, till Dr. Sabu Thomas comes, maybe I could continue that. One of the advantages of nanoparticles is the surface area, especially in catalytic applications. The surface areas can be large. So that is why nano, in the area of catalysis, nanomaterials have gained a lot of importance. Even when you talk about pollutions, even in automobile catalysts, I think the use of nanomaterials can be advantageous. So you can have a large surface area, active area. I think that is where nanomaterials would be very useful as catalysis, not only in pollution, but in all aspects of catalysis.
I may add, you remember the talk by the Nobel laureate on graphene?
Yes.
It is a nanomaterial. He has given a lot of applications in that talk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think we can continue with the next question.
Yeah, till Dr. Sabu Thomas is back.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is, what are the different opportunities connected with the knowledge economy in Kerala? Different opportunities connected with the knowledge economy in Kerala.
Ji, probably you can respond.
Yeah, Saji will answer.
In fact, you have a range of areas where this knowledge economy jobs are available, right from high-end research jobs, research documentation jobs, and when the newer materials, newer technologies are coming in, you have people with a PhD and postdoctoral qualification which is required. And as you know that as part of the knowledge economy mission, various inter-university research centers are being set up in various universities as well as between the universities, focusing on specific areas. A lot of those areas have been mentioned in the last budget, with the areas which are very relevant to Kerala in the fishery science, in the plant science, in the physical science, and to name a large number of them. So that is one set of large segment of research and related type of jobs. And the second is that you also have knowledge jobs in the middle sector, which is actually growing, and which could be driven primarily by the translation happening in the digital space, both in electronics and computer science, and their applications in various areas. That's basically where globally this job space is increasing. The advantage is that today you have the remote working as a norm and what we call as a gig economy. A gig economy conventionally was looking at low-end jobs, but gig economy is now going into the next level of higher-end jobs where you are able to do part-time jobs. You can take freelance jobs at the developmental space, at the research space. So that is another set of jobs, and this requires you can work from your home using software environment, but not necessarily you are doing only on software, but you can do on using a software environment. One just gave an example. If you look at top scientific publications in the world, whether it is Elsevier or whether it is Emerald or any of those large publications in the world, a substantial amount of their editing process, that is the scientific writing process, is actually happening in the backend. And one of the Indian companies is actually the one which is leading that. So they are actually looking at people with PhD, PG qualification who has got the scientific flair and scientific area of writing skills as a part of it. Now, this is not a low-end job. This is actually a high-end job because a typical author may be giving a first level of a paper that need to be copy edited, that has to be looked at from an editorial perspective. Those aspects is a big job. So this is one of the areas which is in the middle layer. Then you have a knowledge job at the third layer where you are primarily looking at the jobs where you use your technological knowledge specifically in some tools and techniques to support research and development activities across the world. A simple example of such a large space job is maybe LaTeX. Now, I don't know how many of our universities are fully adopted LaTeX as the standard editor or standard process for writing the journal papers and other things, but across the world that is an important thing. So you need people who have got skills just to make LaTeX document. This is a big job, and there are institutions under the government itself who are training that, but that's at the lower end. So you are primarily looking at an entire spectrum where your knowledge and related aspects can actually be looked at. Can we work at your own home or work near homes, work in research laboratories, creating the knowledge industries? On just one example, and I'll stop. So, for example, the Graphene Center, which is now coming up in Cochin, which is jointly funded by Government of India and Government of Kerala, we are looking at creating a set of industries which are going to use graphene and doing research and development around that. So this actually brings in a large number of the high-end tech jobs into the space. So such sort of a development happening across the state in the years to come. And that is also an area where we need to look at as a possibility. So to sum up, you have the range of jobs, right from lower end jobs to higher end jobs into the knowledge space. Depending upon your ability and your skill set, you will be able to adopt yourself to that.
Thank you, sir.
Shafiq, before we proceed, I would like to welcome Dr. Aravindan, who has just joined the panel now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Aravindan, for making into it. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, I invite Dr.
The earlier question.
Former Professor of Pathology, Government Medical College, Kozhikode, for the opening remarks. Welcome, sir.
Dr. Aravindan, can you
Yes,
the gathering? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Dr. KP Aravindan. I'm basically a medical doctor. I was pathology professor in various medical colleges in the state and retired as pathology professor in Calicut Medical College. Thereafter, for some time, I worked as ICMR emeritus scientist in setting up a laboratory in Calicut, a multidisciplinary research laboratory associated with Calicut Medical College, where now work on COVID and sequencing and other things are being done now. Currently, I'm working in a private reference laboratory. My areas of interest are basically pathology, various diseases, cancer and blood diseases, hematology, and some diseases like acute appendicitis. My research work is basically based on that. I'm also associated with, I have been associated with Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad for a long time. And I've, along with the Parishad, I've been part of many of the epidemiological studies conducted, health studies by Parishad.
Thank you, sir.
Can I, because I was disconnected a little bit earlier, can I answer that boy's question on nanomaterials?
Yes,
or yeah, you see, to answer a question, I was sorry I was disconnected. Nanomaterials are extensively used for environmental remediation because of high surface to volume ratio. Right now, I have a big research group working on water purification. What we do is we make nanocellulose, modify the surface, and then we make membrane. And if you pass through this membrane, if you pass water through the membrane, you can catch bacteria and virus, you can catch heavy metals, you can catch all suspended particles, you can catch dyes, because water is polluted with the dyes. And the mechanism is simple absorption process, size exclusion principle, or electrostatic interaction. So nanomaterials are wonderful materials, materials for purifying water, purifying soil, purifying air. And if anybody is interested to work with us, most welcome. Thank you. I will be away for half an hour because I have to give a plenary talk for a conference. I'll be back at 11:30. So please excuse me.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, we have another question. Is there any technology developed to absorb the atmospheric carbon dioxide in India?
I'll just briefly answer. We are actually working on graphene, modified graphene. There's no technology really developed, but there are a lot of.
Sorry, no audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, Doctor.
Yeah.
Please repeat. Please repeat. Yeah.
There are different laboratories. The technology, what we are doing is we are making use of graphene, modified graphene for carbon dioxide absorption process. There are different laboratories in India also very active carbon dioxide absorption. And nanomaterials are a very fascinating structures, to have a carbon dioxide absorption process. We are also doing some work with the modified nanocellulose too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have another question.
Yeah, I mean, I add, Tata Steel has set up a big in Jamshedpur, a big factory for carbon dioxide capture. Also, that is one of the industrial applications in this. They are setting it up in Jamshedpur.
Sir, we have got another question. Can you spot some of the future opportunities in space science?
Future space science is very, very elaborate. A lot of things are being talked now. And, other countries, NASA and European space agencies have already started working. I list down, there are many, but I list down a few. See, now only is basic for transportation instead of our aircrafts. They are considering the rockets to certain extent for, flying from one country to another country, with almost 1/4 or 1/5 of the time what they use about it. That is for travel on the land by using the technology, converting the present jet propulsion technology to a rocket propulsion technology for increasing the speed. This is one. And the basic requirement of human being is to find an alternate habitat elsewhere. That is what, all these kind of international space station and everything has been done there. And another great research what has already been started about 25 years back is to have power satellites. Power satellites means a constellation of satellites will be positioned facing the sun directly for absorbing the solar thing by with large surface area solar panels, and so that permanently they will be positioned in such a way that they will be facing the sun by getting the solar light, and then transfer of the energy in either by microwave or laser technique ground station in earth, and then converting to electricity by an instrument called retina. This particular system research has started much earlier, and it has reached a certain level up. There are many hurdles in it. One is the radiation effects on the ground station. For that, they are thinking about having islands, isolated islands, or even for making barges type of artificial islands in the sea, so that the radiation hazards will be much lesser. This is one area where if we can have that tapping the solar energy from the sun in a permanent way continuously is going to be a marthrough. Things are there. Then one more thing is the identification of rare materials, rare metals and rare materials in any other planet or satellites or meteors and etc. Whether we can make use of that system here, especially for the habitat in other planets or etc. Now they are thinking of a technology where the habitat can be made a collapsible type of things, like an umbrella, a bigger umbrella, like the things, which can be collapsed and folded into a very small compact volume and keep it there, and you can launch and then unfurl it so that, it can be erected. Like that, many possibilities are being thought in the future space science. Continuously it is going on.
Shafiq, you want to continue?
Thank you, sir. The next question is why there is not so much focus on the pedagogical sciences in the knowledge economy mission of Kerala.
Saji, could you respond to it? You're on mute.
Can you repeat the question?
Sir,
why there is no So much specific focus on the pedagogical sciences in the knowledge economy mission of Kerala.
So basically, knowledge economy mission primarily looking at those skills which are where there is going to be the knowledge opportunities are there across the world, and ensure that Kerala is prepared to take best use of that. Now, even though it is directly not mentioned as pedagogical skills or training teachers, that is not specifically mentioned, which is right. But there is an indirect indication of that, because when you are looking at specifically on various domain skills, language skills, life skills, which is primarily we mentioned in the knowledge economy mission, I think it covers that. Moreover, it is also being mentioned that the future teachers can actually use their pedagogical skills combined with the technological advancement to reach to a larger context. And I believe that one of the centers is also on digital learning material development. So basically that can actually help the pedagogical skills to go into the next level, because we know that today you have a large number of sessions being delivered in various subjects in across the world using technology, and that is not just you cannot just take a normal your offline classes into an online class just like that. You really require a specific training and skill set for that, because you are now addressing a very different audience. You are using a different sets of methods to interact with them. You are moving to a world of precision education. All these are aspects are actually being a part of the knowledge economy mission itself. But in fact, there's a center, as I said, there's a center for digital learning which is being mentioned in that. So I don't fully agree that it is not specifically being spoken as a pedagogy, but throughout it speaks about the need for a pedagogical change which is required to make sure that the people who come out of our higher education system are actually able to take up the future jobs and future opportunities. And one thing which I missed earlier, and I'm sure that Professor Suresh Das will be able to add to this, is that one of the stress of knowledge economy mission also is on the translational research, where the research which is happening in the laboratories and the universities, how do we actually translate that into the knowledge economy as such? Because when you're preparing in the laboratories, you are primarily getting into a knowledge world, but you are not translating that into an economy. This is also being stressed. That also is a part of the knowledge economy mission. So I think that's briefly. I don't know whether I fully answered Professor Benedict's question, but that is my perspective on this.
Can I add to this?
Rajashree.
Yeah, it is like, say, why do we need mission? It is because the process of education system is not sufficient to cater to the needs of the knowledge economy, which means that we have to, it is not prescribing very clearly how the teaching learning process should evolve, but it is more of a cultural shift. It requires translation of research findings, and also like it should be connecting the real life needs to the higher education system. That is very important. Only if students and teachers are able to feel that such requirements are there, then the next thought will be to translate the knowledge to these kind of opportunities, which can bring in businesses, new enterprises, etc. So this is not something which can be packaged in the form of a few courses and that can be given, but it is a whole cultural shift. And possibly if we are able to adopt outcome-based education with clearly specified outcomes, some of which are towards this will the higher education itself will cater to the needs of the knowledge economy. But that cultural change has to happen in the organizations, in the minds of teachers and students. Only then it will happen. But of course, as Professor Saji put it, there are a lot of package sort of things embedded in the approach to creating enterprises and businesses from the knowledge that is created. And the pedagogy can be assisted by the tools and systems developed such, but still the basic requirement is the redefinition of the teaching learning process and the research which is more towards applied research and it should be driven by innovative approaches. All these will holistically contribute to the knowledge economy mission. If a higher education system itself can deliver such outputs, we don't even need a mission like this. So that is how we need to take it, the academic community. How do we eliminate this mission to achieve this, to create knowledge workers at various levels, creating IPR, and then creating solutions which can easily drive economic growth, etc. This is something which requires very deep thought from the academic community. That's my take on this.
Thank you, madam. The next question is, why spike protein mutation is so important in the coronavirus?
Dr. Aravindan is still here, right? Or Dr. GM Nair, you can respond to it.
Okay, good. Hello. It's a good question. You know that the entire immunological programming of the virus is based on the spike proteins. Most of those vaccines being developed are based on the spike proteins. Now, if spike proteins are the one which makes a recognition with the host system, maybe that if this interaction is being prevented, the virus infection will not happen. So immunological responses happen this way. But then if there are mutations in the spike proteins, sometimes the targeted vaccination may not work because they may not be able to recognize this. So many of these cases, like what they said, the Omicron virus, if mutation occurs to that extent that the immunological systems will not work, in that case, you are bound to get the infection. Even if you are vaccinated twice or thrice, even the booster after booster dose, many people have got it. That's why bypassing, evading the immune systems. So the spike protein is the one which is being targeted for research in different parts of the world. And now people are going even for making targeted drugs for that. But what I understand from the knowledge that has been generated during this, especially in the genomic area, that we will have, we have understood, sequenced the entire spike protein gene, and then if mutation occurs in the other places, there is no much of a problem. But then proteins are the targets, mainly because we are relying on spike proteins for making the immunological, blockage through vaccinations. Answers?
Can I add something?
No, please do.
Yeah. For two things, spike protein is important. One is the virulence of the organism, and the transmissibility, how fast it can infect a person, and how. So one of the main things that determines the ease of transmission is the way that it can bind to the receptor and get into the cells. So it binds to receptors like ACE2 receptors, and the avidity with which it binds to a receptor can change according to different mutations. So by and by, what happened is that over a period of time, there has been a kind of selection that is occurring from the Wuhan virus to Delta virus to Omicron virus. The spike protein has been changing continuously to get more competitive advantage to enter these cells and infect people, more and more people. That's why we see that Delta completely replaced the Wuhan, then Omicron has completely replaced this. And some people like to think, wishfully I would think that we have reached the limit now, because Omicron has it is the best kind of binding capabilities to bind to this receptors. And hopefully, if that is the case, then nothing better than Omicron can now happen. but that is still a questionable thing. Second thing, as was previously mentioned, is the immunological response to it, whether by vaccination or by natural immunity, whether the natural antibody, the antibodies that have been produced by previous infection or by vaccination, whether it can recognize the altered spike protein due to the new mutations. So here also we know that such things can happen. That is why Omicron, people are getting the Omicron virus despite having previous infection or vaccination. And now there are also attempts to predict what are the possible future mutations that can occur, and to try to, and yet another thing is the tests. The RT-PCR tests again are dependent on the primers. Whether the primer areas are mutated will determine the efficacy of the test. So all this, whether future mutations can be predicted, and whether we can plan tests and vaccines and other things which can deal with even the future mutations. In all this, we have been aided by the sequencing platforms that are now available.
Thank you, sir. So next question is, what is the future perspective of biotechnology in India?
Biotechnology, yes. Biotechnology, the frontier science area, is even projected in the fourth industrial revolution as one of the strongholds. It encompasses most of the frontier areas of science, biological science, and not only biological science, in other sciences. So for example, what we are talking about, we have talked about the viruses, the coronavirus, the Omicron variant, the Delta variant. What is important is that, as Dr. Aravindan has rightly said, there are certain hotspots in the viruses where mutation can occur. You need to specifically understand that, because there may be a time when we will not be equipped with enough defense mechanisms, methods, even not for virus, even for all the other pathogens. So maybe that one of the frontier areas that's being projected in biotechnology is the genomic lab. As you understand, that we had the Human Genome Project started in 1990. 2003, we had the complete draft of Human Genome. Now, you should understand that the variability that happens in the human genome was not understood because it was a single genome being analyzed. Now, what we now look into is that a species, different individuals of the species. So you have the Human Genome Diversity Program, then you have the pangenomics. Pangenomics is where within a species, how much of genomic variations are there? Because you know that we take human beings as a unit, as a species, and we will have core genes which are shared by entire individuals, but there are unique ones which would be specific to me, to the individual. So like that, every organism has got this too. So one of those frontier areas, if you have to live again to not only in the pharmacogenomic area where we can go for personalized medicine, or maybe design new drugs, you design drugs which can be targeted, and as well as for, as Dr. Aravindan has said, the kind of diagnostic process that happens, whether the antigen antibody reaction or the genomic primers being used to identify not only viruses but all the other things. In addition to that, there are a number of applications. If you look at the dearth of applications that we have in biotechnology, any area that you take, even if it is for the environmental pollution, even for food production, increased food production, as for that matter, genetic engineering has come in a big way. But only unfortunate thing is that India has not popularized the genetic engineering in plant system, in crop plants, except for the BT cotton. No other crop which have been modified extensively for productivity have been taken into. So what is important to know at this point is that because there are a lot of hue and cry, because you borrow a gene from elsewhere and put it into the cropland, and that might affect the environmental system. So people say that the uniqueness of a species will be lost. It would also indulge in the interactive process of the biodiversity. And in that case, what people now look into, the most important area is the gene editing. That's going to be the major area that is going to come in, wherein the editing, through editing, you don't borrow any gene from elsewhere. You are managing your own genes. So for example, you can correct your genetic defects. You can have much better performance of the organism through gene editing, because using what is known as the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, where 2020 Nobel Prize in medicine and physiology went into Carpentier and Jennifer for their outstanding process. So this has been now taken up in a big way. So what I'm saying is that biotechnology, which amalgamates, which combines the entire, because this is the most important interactive interdisciplinary science that is operational. So the future is unpredictable, because unless we project biotechnology, we take up biotechnology, take up biological research, because we are living in an environment where we are being pressurized by the organisms, like what that for the past 2 years we have been with this coronavirus, that how much it has affected the human life. So we are always exposed to different kinds of pathogenic things. We need to specifically understand the biological, because not only that, I'll end by saying that we need to improve the organisms for the benefit. As you know, that one of those greatest achievements of biotechnology is the production of human insulin. Human gene has been inserted into bacteria and the insulin is being produced. So the only insulin that is available in the market is the human insulin, which is called as humulin. So there are a number of recombinant proteins which are being produced, which are the greater areas that is being projected as the savior of mankind. The humankind, if it has to live, you need to have food, you need to have good medicine, targeted medicine, focused medicine, as well as you need to critically identify the organisms which come into, so that we will go for making drugs, targeted drugs for the organism. We may be able to make our body equipped to defend the different organisms, as well that we will go in for making valuable vaccines at the target. Because it's amazing to see that within about 6 months' time, we had a vaccine being made. Indigenous vaccine, as well as through a borrowed technology. The Bharat Biotech has made the vaccine indigenously, while the Serum Institute or maybe other places, they have borrowed technology or developed technology. But we are so proud to say that we could control the corona pandemic mainly because we had enough of vaccines available. So the future is great. If I say, go on speaking about the future, the opportunities that are available in biotechnology, I may take the entire time to speak about it. But understand that biotechnology is the savior of mankind, and it is the science for the future. Thank you. Is that I have answered your question? I don't know, Shafiq.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So the next question is.
Can I
yes.
add to this?
Yeah.
I would say that the only imagination is your only limit as far as biotechnology is concerned. So many fields, whether it is agriculture or any field. But regarding medicine, 2 or 3 areas which I see great changes is, one is cancer treatment. Cancer treatment, something is that now one thing is immunotherapy. You make your own antibodies and T cells to work against the cancer cells. And the T cells can be engineered to make them more powerful, so-called CAR technology. Actually empowers the T cells to act more strongly than normal T cells. And then they will go and attack the cancer cells and nothing else. So that kind of treatment is now coming up. I am sure that another 2 years, 3 years, this is going to come into the mainstream. Then gene therapy, editing and gene therapy is going to come in a very, very big way. For many diseases like thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, and so on, even without bone marrow transplantation, which is the only cure right now, we can actually take your own red cells and engineer them to produce more hemoglobin F, for example, and so that they become more like fetal cells, and you transplant it back to the same patient. So that kind of gene editing is very promising. Tissue engineering. Another thing, doing away with transplants ultimately. You make your own stem cells and use this tissue engineering and differentiation of these stem cells to create organs so that you can do away in future with transplantation. Artificial personalized medicine, every cancer patient or any patient, your treatment will be decided on an individual basis. You have a whole lot of laboratory data, computers and genomic data, and all these things are put together by AI systems, and then you comes out with the kind of treatment that is there for that patient. So this is going to be the future, not very far away. I think in the next decade or so, we are going to see this happening. And it's a very, very exciting field to get into right now.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, which cropping system will be most suitable in a state like Kerala? Which cropping system will be most suitable in a state like Kerala?
That question is for me, but that is a difficult question. See, there are several kinds of cropping.
I think he has some connection problem, it looks like.
Sir, we have one more question.
Yeah, we'll take
Can
up
you hear
that.
me now?
Yes,
sir. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Homestead-based farming system would be the most
Louder, please.
Yeah. Homestead-based farming system would be the most appropriate for Kerala because our holdings are very small. Okay.
No audio.
Can you elaborate a little more, sir?
Well, okay. See, in Kerala, I am confused about whether I am audible now.
Yeah,
you're audible.
Yeah.
Okay. See, we do have several cropping systems. So, for example, coconut-based farming system is one. Rice-based farming system is another. Cassava-based or tapioca-based farming system is another. Then we have plantation crop-based farming systems. And most importantly, since our holdings are very, very small, because we may have our houses and we are following the hamlet type of villages. See, around the house, we may have some 50 cents, 20 cents, 25 cents of land like that. So this house act as the pivotal point of that farming system, and around that will be growing several kinds of crops, and that farming system is called homestead-based farming system. Malayalam Poreyadadhishthita Krishi. That would be the most prominent, and we may have some livestock there, some poultry, then some crops for the kitchen and for our animal, and that would be the most ideal. Is that okay for the questioner?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So
Thank
next
you.
question we have, why Kerala is continuously exposing to the different types of disasters, both ecological as well as biological?
Very
right.
general question, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe I'll answer. I don't know. It's not my area, but biological, I think Dr. G.M. Nair is probably the most suited. But when you look at the climate of Kerala, it's a very hospitable place to God's own country. It's a good place for all of us to live. So the climate is actually very appropriate for all kinds of microbes, I suppose. And then we have, it's also a place where we have a lot of migration. A lot of people from abroad come. So it's a combination of factors. And also we have migration of birds. So this is with regard to biological systems, I think that is probably one of the reasons that the tropical climate, and the temperature, which is conducive, is one of the reasons. And with regard to the other natural disasters, I suppose we have several factors. Development is one aspect that has to be looked at. I think, in fact, when we look at development, we have to look into these aspects of how fragile the ecosystem is. And so sometimes when we have ignored these factors, I think that is what causes some of these, especially management of rivers, management of when a lot of constructions that have taken place within the cities in an unscientific manner. I think these are all led to that. I'm not an expert in this area, but I think I do not know if anybody else can give.
I will
Dr.
add
Sudhir,
a few more points what Dr. Suresh Das has told. See, look at our land in Kerala. It's a very unique shape. I think, that kind of shape we have never seen. See, it's having a long coast of about 600 kilometers of the sea coast. And the width of our state itself is, it varies from 20 kilometers to about 120 kilometers width. And this particular very narrow time, it goes to the Western Ghats, and the altitude goes drastically changing from the mean sea level to something like 5,000, 6,000 feet height. So these all topographic system is a very peculiar system, and added to that, the population density, highest population density, maximum water bodies, and about 44 number of rivers. Most of the rivers starting from the Western Ghats and going to the sea. All these kind of are all very unique. Unique systems for the ecological system becomes very fragile because of the combination of all these things. That is the main things what we are, especially the recently what we felt about the flood, etc. is clear things, especially when the warming goes high, global warming goes high, when the sea is getting heated up fast, and when the moisture rich air is moving towards the place in the Western Ghats where it is getting blocked for a precipitation. Definitely that precipitation, condensation and the rain makes things, and Pi will be able to add more on this with respect to our peculiar shape of our state. Ecologically, I mean, especially the very, very severe weather changes what we are feeling now.
Can I add a little more to?
May I add to that? See, peculiarity of our state is very important. Western Ghats in the east, it's full of forests. That is providing us with the rain. And then the water is coming down. And the management of the land is one thing which we have not looked into. That has to be looked into very clearly. And I think Netherlands, how they keep their land and the cultivation in a very planned manner. That is one example we have found. Similar planning has to be done. See, a wetland, if you are filling it with sand, what will happen? The water level in that area will go down. That creates more problems. So when the rain comes, the water will come, it will flow to sea. This is the peculiarity of our land. So that has to be maintained, and therefore a careful planning of the geologists or geophysicists must be there, and the water scientist also has to have their opinion, and that planning is not there. These happenings will always be there. Thank you.
One thing that frequently when we talk of biological problems, one thing that we frequently overlook is that we also diagnose more disease when compared to any other state in Kerala, for example. See, if Corona itself, you take an example, you find that you look at all the data, Kerala stands number 2 after Maharashtra, the number of Corona cases diagnosed. But actual data, this is simply because all the surveillance studies by ICMR and all the registration, death registration data, everything shows that Kerala has the least had the least incidence of the disease, had the least number of deaths. But according to the data available, we are on top. So we are diagnosing far more cases, whether it is cancer or infectious disease, everywhere. Papillary carcinoma of thyroid is a disease very high. Kerala is number 1. So we hunt and look for all kinds of causes. One of the reasons is that we pick up even very small, insignificant papillary cancers, which probably would have gone unnoticed totally during life by ultrasound techniques and then treat them.
Yeah, I'll add to
society, and this is really making a difference. I'm not saying that this is the only thing, but this also has to be taken into account whenever we talk of Kerala being very, very vulnerable to infectious disease and so on. Dengue fever, for example, we have high number because we report more cases. In Tamil Nadu, adjacent Tamil Nadu, for example, dengue fever, a lot of it goes unreported totally. So we don't know what actual situation is in many places in India.
Can I add a little more on the disaster things? Well, I'll also request Dr. Pai to respond after me. One of the observations we had is, if you look at the last 100 years, split it into 2. And first 50 years of average rainfall and the next 50 years of average rainfall. When you say average rainfall, it is more or less same. What does it mean is when you take a long-term average, if it is remaining same, but at the same time we are experiencing extreme events increasingly increasing, or the frequency of extreme events have changed a lot. So the distribution of the rainfall along the years have become really different now. So it means that the frequency of extreme rainfall events on the higher side, as well as no rainfall events, also are going to increase in future. So we are going to face a flooding situation as well as drought situation in future. But as mentioned by Sri Dattan sir very rightly, the population density of our state has increased, and the area where these population can stay remain the same, because upstream or the western side of the eastern side of Kerala is completely forested. You cannot go and occupy there. I mean, though there are people occupying, but then density is more on the other side. So actually when the habitat increases, the development also increases. When the development increases, as Dr. Suresh Das mentioned, it is not scientifically done. Land use practices or land management is not done scientifically. So these are all the factors increasing or basically making us into trouble. And along with that, our lifestyle has gone different, which basically makes us vulnerable for different kinds of diseases as well. If you look at 50 years back, we had a balanced situation of water and natural resources and other things. But now this is completely a different picture now. We need to really look into managing our resources effectively and then take care of it. And probably Dr. Pai can add on the rainfall pattern and other events.
Thank you, Dr. Sudhir. So actually, all of we know that global warming is there, which is true. And because of that, different parts of the globe is experiencing extreme weather events, whether it is a drought, extreme rainfall, floods, cyclones, etc. This is also seen over many parts of the country also, India also. But coming to very specific to Kerala, Whereas we have seen that extreme events are increasing over particularly central parts of the country and many areas of West Coast. Kerala, it is being seen that in recent years, it is a decreasing. Extreme events are not increasing there. It's a very peculiar. So then the question comes that in spite of decrease in the extreme events, why there is an impact, more impact is there? One aspect already Datan sir and many others also mentioned, geography is very important. We have got a very narrow kind of land, and West Coast, whereas during monsoon season, this Western Ghats stops the moisture and you get a very heavy rainfall. And at the same time, because of the warming of the Arabian Sea, etc., a lot of moisture is coming nowadays, and there is an increase in tropical cyclone or low pressure system forming in the Arabian Sea. But many studies have shown that more important is the change in the land use and land cover. So because of increase in the population, people are now shifting. There is no place in the coastal area. Slowly they are going to higher lands for agriculture purpose or for having a staying there, etc. And they are changing very significantly using mechanically. Soils are being loosened mechanically, using big instruments, etc. Mechanical instruments. As a result, soil is got very soft. And whenever you have got a rainfall, even though it's not very extreme, its impact on landslide or other has been increased. And also because of the increase in the temperature, the vector-borne diseases has increased in many parts of the globe. It is being seen in Kerala also, because there are certain occasions when temperature and moisture conditions are there. Vector-borne diseases increase. This has been seen in Orissa and many parts. Similar case is the Kerala. So definitely there has been decrease in the impact on ecology because of air pollution or water pollution, and it also has got indirect impact on biological thing, because of the temperature in the ocean, acidification has increased. It has got impact on biological things in the ocean, and similarly because of the increase in the temperature over the land also impact on agriculture and other biological aspect. Thank you. I think some major points.
Very interesting thing, Dr. Sudhir and Dr. Pai said, the same thing impacts also on the pattern of diseases actually. See, what we have seen in the past few years is that very heavy rains for few days, then for many days there will be no rain. So that kind of change in patterns of rains, two diseases at least you can relate to this. One is stagnant water and their contamination by leptospira produces a disease called leptospirosis. By walking through the stagnant water is the main reason for people getting leptospirosis. And this has been associated also with our waste management and the way that stray dog multiplication and their urine getting contaminating the water. And so it's a complex kind of thing. In which rainfall pattern is very important. We have done a study, actually published in a published study, which shows the pattern of rainfall and heavy rains followed by few days and by shooting up of cases of leptospirosis. So this happens. Then dengue fever and all the stagnant water also causes Aedes aegypti to breed in various small vessels or pots or plastic bags and so on. And this also is related to rainfall pattern. So I think many of our problems are interlinked basically, and we have to see them as a whole.
Sir, another thing which I want to add, sir. Yeah. Can I say, sir? Nair, sir?
No, please.
Yeah. See, another thing you can see that whenever rainfall occurs, it should get infiltrate quickly to the soil. But because now that earlier every house used to have a well. Now slowly for development purpose we are closing the well, and you have got cementing of roads and most parts of you around your house and around the area. So as a result, what happens is that it is unable to infiltrate into the soil quickly. As a result, that is getting stagnated and also a large amount of water get collected in certain area and it flows very strongly, causing the impact. So this is also, so we have to also change our habit, earlier like having well, so that it can, when you have got a lot of water, it can infiltrate, and you don't have water, from the below, water is provided, so that there is no shortage of water. But we are creating shortage of water sometimes and abundance of water sometimes because of our change in the practice. Just to mention.
Just a few words. We have said enough about this particular phenomenon. Kerala, it is being depicted as a place where many things are unique. Now, another uniqueness is that most of these infectious diseases come to Kerala. We should ask the question. The ecosystem mismanagement is one of the reasons. For example, as Dr. Aravindan has said, the Aedes aegypti mosquito. You have dengue, we have chikungunya, we have Zika. There are so many viral infections which are being reported. Leave aside the COVID, it is a global pandemic, but there are no specific reasons. Maybe that the surge in COVID in Kerala, it should be, maybe it is because we are much more vulnerable. Our genomic system is not that proficient to ward the virus. But the other things, the Nipah is not a mosquito-borne virus, but the other viruses, the dengue, chikungunya, which is very prevalent in Kerala and causes a lot of death. Maybe that we don't report it. So ecosystem, mismanagement is one of the reasons. For example, Aedes mosquitoes, as Dr. Aravindan said, that it is in fresh water, it breeds. Why is it that we are not prepared? Preparedness for any kind of pandemics, we are not. We just make a hue and cry when a pandemic comes in. We make a hue and cry when a natural calamity hits us. For the past 3-4 years, we had that. But then what is important is that the preparedness for all the infectious diseases. So how would we manage the ecosystem? Why is it that Aedes aegypti is flourishing? If you control that, I'm sure that there will not be chikungunya, there will not be dengue, there will not be Zika. Only through this mosquito that this can be transmitted. So maybe that you need to have the food chain that is happening. We need to manage it. We need to see it. And then what happens by way of, as I said, rightly, specifically point out that the ecosystem damage. Ecosystem restoration is the best way, because we have a lot of animal-human conflict, a lot of problems that is happening. And all these are mainly because we are not making a preparedness, a system where we can predict what is going to happen next and then we manage it. So unless we manage that way, I think new diseases are going to come. Maybe that we are more vulnerable, our ecosystem or the system, the climate change, the humid conditions, everything together manifest most of those diseases as a hotspot in Kerala. We should address that. So preparedness, we need to have a predictiveness, all these combined together. So we need to have that kind of system to be incorporated into our management system. This is just adding to what others have said.
I think connecting to this discussion, there is a question asked by one of the students. There are so much uncertainty in weather forecasting models, whether it is IMD or other. How can we improve these models in this extreme climatic event period? What are the activities happening to improve these models from the government side as well as in the research community? Probably Dr. Pai, you can respond to it.
Yeah, so it is a question commonly asked by many people. Definitely, there is a limitation in the forecasting, weather or climate forecasting, mainly because the weather forecasting is not a deterministic, particularly as the forecast period is increasing. That means you forecast the next 24 hours, much better still. Forecast 48 hours, slightly decreasing. As you go further and further, there is more and more uncertainty occurs, because most of the atmospheric processes are random. They are not deterministic. There are, for same situation, initial condition, there can be possibly several outcomes are possible. That is why it is a mostly probabilistic forecast. And this uncertainty has increased further because of the climate change also. That is also an aspect. Now, the forecasting skill is controlled by mainly two aspects. One is the observation, that is the three-dimensional picture that we give into the model to make the forecast. So we need the initial condition has to be more best, accuracy should be best. That means you have to take observation at every three-dimensional points in the climate system, so that you can first of all create a good input to be given to the model. But you know, our 75% of the globe is ocean, and there is very less observations. That's why we are depending on remote sensing radar or satellite to get observations where we cannot make surface observation. And another thing is that within the land itself, there are many areas because of civil war or other issues, we are not able to take observation. So therefore, there is a slight limitation that we give the input to the model itself. And further, the model itself is a prognostic equations of physics, chemistry, so many physical conditions. And when we convert into the computer codes, full equations are not being used. Therefore, model equations themselves create certain error or uncertainty. So there is always a limitation is there. So there are two aspects has to be there: improved observations, improved modeling, both are happening continuously, and also better computing power. So because of the latest technological improvement, things are improving. So therefore, you might have seen that last 5 or 10 years, there has been significant improvement in the forecasting system. You had seen that cyclone which was in the east coast used to kill lakhs of people. Now you will see that recently it is being predicted well in ahead, 1 week or almost 10 days ahead. As a result, government or people get enough time to take precautionary actions, and death occurs are only that you can count in finger. And that also people, those who don't heed the advice and they don't move out of their place. And we are also saving crops which are in the which can be reaped, etc. They are also harvesting stage also are being saved. So there is definitely increase in the improvement in the forecast. And in India, like in any other global institution, the forecasting things are there. But since inherently atmospherics are very random, there is going to be always limitation in the forecast. It cannot be 100%, it cannot be accurate at any time. And depending on the situation, the accuracy will be changing. But definitely there is all over the globe, people are working, and we should expect further improvement in the forecasting system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, please.
Okay. How is the drastic climatic change affect the agricultural field in Kerala? And what are the precautions or the immediate remedies that we need to take place?
Already, I will just in aspect of climate change, I will tell, but exact agriculture, somebody experts will be talking. As already we have mentioned, there is a change in the climate pattern, rainfall pattern, temperature pattern. So naturally, when you will have a climate and weather is changing, there will be impact, because earlier the crops which used to be there, they will have a difficult aspect. So there is need to be we have to make modification in the crop itself, so that they can be more temperature resistant, drought resistant crops has to be developed. There are several technologies are also there currently. And also since I have already said, environmental ecological impact also there, water and other various aspect also in the agriculture. So but people are working on improving crop yield, etc., because of the climate change which has got a significant impact. But only agriculture people will be able to say how they are working on improving crop yield and other aspect of the agriculture to the climate change impact.
Dr. George Thomas, you want to respond?
Sir,
I think he got disconnected. I will add a little more onto it. So what we have observed is two
sir, can
things.
I ask a question, please?
Yeah, Akshay, can I come back to you after I answer to Shaji? There is if you look at the rainfall pattern in the past, there is a change in the rainfall initiation, and if we are dependent on rain-fed agriculture, the extreme events and the change in rainfall pattern is going to affect us completely. At the same time, if we are dependent on irrigated agriculture, where these dams and reservoirs stores the water and appropriately appropriately operate the reservoir in such a way that when you require water for agriculture, they release it. I think the crisis situation can be managed. We have done a study in Narmada in Bhopal. So we found that additional reservoirs can actually help in the agricultural practices by storing the excess water received during the extreme events. So we need to actually get prepared and plan for these kind of development, which will probably help us in again managing, because India is an agricultural dependent country. So we need to have the agricultural practices going on. So we need to develop solutions in terms of planning our agricultural activities in the context of climate change as well. And as Dr. Pai rightly mentioned, we need to do a lot of research on agricultural species, which can become maybe a little more temperature resistant, because if the temperature is warming, in a warming climate, your evaporative requirement, evapotranspiration requirement of your crop will increase, which will demand more water. And if you don't have water, then there is again a problem. All these are interconnected problems which we need to address specifically. Yeah, Dr. Joe Thomas, do you want to add anything to
yes.
this question?
Okay, I a little bit. See, nowadays we are promoting climate smart agriculture. So FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, is also for that, and they are maintaining a separate website also for that. So wherein we go for adaptations and mitigation strategies as far as crops are concerned, and we know that our main climate-related problems are flood as well as drought, and the resilience of crops to adapt to increased temperature. So there are several technologies available which we can utilize properly to avoid some of the extreme climatic events. So in some cases we breed for better varieties which can cope with the situation. We go for short duration varieties to adjust with the pattern where we'll avoid a season of extreme climate and so on. So a package of practices are emerging to cope with this kind of situation. Thank you.
See, may I add one more thing? The unpredictability of the weather. One aspect is the solar activity. That also sometimes changes the climate. I think Dr. Pai will agree with me.
Yes, sir. Yes. So it's
so that is unpredictable. So sometimes that may happen, and some climate changes will occur according to that, because solar activity is one thing which we are not able to understand much. That is the reason.
Thank you, sir. Now Akshay can ask.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm a final year PG student of Marianis College. Sir, I have a question that we are in an era of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. Sir, how can a student who is trained through the conventional engineering subject like electrical or mechanical prepare for the global job opportunities?
Can I take that?
Yeah, please, Ajay.
Yeah, see, basically these technologies are only going to transform this basic engineering. It's not that basic engineering like mechanical or electrical engineering is going to become redundant. So you have seen that over the period, you take mechanical, for example, the manufacturing systems have now changed. There is a change happening at efficiencies are coming at a micro level. especially with the 3D printing and additive manufacturing becoming a much more popular. So you basically see that the fundamentals of this engineering will remain. There is a transformation which happens in each of this engineering. So as a student of conventional engineering, what you should do is you should also see how these newer technologies are actually going to affect or how these technologies can be adopted into the domain as such. Now, and one of the good guidance for that is look at some of the larger professional bodies in this space. So, for example, ASME in the context of mechanical engineering. ASME comes out with frequent reports on what is the future of mechanical engineering, which are the areas where the development is happening. The space we have discussed. Space is one area where substantial amount of development is happening across the world. It is said that the number of satellites which went to the till 2017, the number went up in 2018 and 19 is more than the number which went up to that point of time. So you have seen that there's an exponential growth happening in many of these areas. Drones is another area. Micro manufacturing is another area. So these areas are all require most of these technologies which you spoke about, this, whether it's AI, whether it is data, and also now the devices are now moving with its own intelligence, where you have number of sensors being put in the devices are increasing, so that there is a different paradigms of maintenance management which is coming. So all these are actually huge opportunities for us. So I think I always used to say that when in a very trivial example, if you take when maybe 30 years back, when you study engineering drawing, we used to do it in paper. Then it moved to next level where you started doing in computer software, like maybe you started developing the models. Now you actually translate that into 3D printing devices. So it is not that the fundamentals are changing, the adoption of it is going to change. And we cannot say that these are separate. The whole concept of Industrial 4.0 itself is that
Saji, we lost your voice.
Sound lost.
It became muted. Got muted, Professor Saji.
Saji, we lost your voice.
Sorry. So I was saying that if you look at, in order to prepare yourself for that, you cannot say that our college syllabus has not prepared us, because we have enough and more resources available today. If you look at the globally, the courses available in various platforms actually help you on this adoption of these newer technologies in your common domain. So study the fundamentals pretty well. Use how these technologies are going to transform these domains, and that's the way I think you should prepare for yourself. That's my call. Maybe I think Dr. Rajeshri may be able to add more to this.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I also have to say. You have to look at the applications in the engineering field which you are studying, and you have to see how ICT can be integrated with that. In order to facilitate this, at KTU, we have introduced the concept of minor. If you're a mechanical engineer, you can take a minor, which is an additional set of 5 courses in computer science. So which can equip you with these capabilities, artificial intelligence or data science, or if you want to do image processing, you can do that. So it becomes very powerful in the sense that you study one branch of engineering, at the same time you get interdisciplinary competency, which will enable you the kind of question that you was to achieve the kind of competency that is required. You would have listened to Dr. Aravindan when he said lot of artificial intelligence and such kind of computing and simulation modeling technologies are used in medicine also. That is an interdisciplinary approach where we are using advanced technologies for basic problem solving in other conventional basic subjects. So that's the way you should look at it. So if you are able to identify the need for newer technologies, then it is your responsibility to bridge those gaps by using the facilities available, like the massively open online courses, other courses conducted by other agencies for skilling in this way. That is the way we should look at it. So never think that it is replacing conventional engineering. It is like a tool. New technologies and tools will come and they will have to be integrated as you study mathematics and use it for your engineering courses. You have these tools. You should identify the right kind of, you should never compromise on your basic disciplines. It is not going away with the carried away by the tool, but you will have to have the basic problem solving skills with the basic engineering principles. At the same time, how you can make it easier or more powerful by using the modern technologies. That is the philosophy you should follow. Your imagination and engineering design capabilities should never be limited by the tool sets that are available. That is one precaution that we need to take when we go after these tools and technologies.
I'll just add that is why one of the reasons, like these specializations are offered at the postgraduate level, not at the undergraduate level. Yeah. So, Safiq, can we take the next question?
Yes, sir. We have a question from Deep. Deep.
Hello,
Yeah,
sir.
go ahead, Safiq.
Good afternoon, sir. I have a question that can nuclear energy replace our present energy system in automobile industry? Can nuclear energy replace our present energy system in automobile industries?
May I answer that?
Please.
See, nuclear energy is something which even now people are not approving. So many places it has not been approved, and some states are, some countries are leaving it out because there are problems with that. And that is not a small technology that we can use. In a car, we cannot use a nuclear reactor. That will become very big. In submarines, we are using. Submarines, there is a nuclear reactor we are using, and therefore nuclear energy is used in submarines, so they can remain immersed for a longer time under the sea. That is the reason we are using. But now, no technology can at present replace the present energy scenario in the automobiles.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.
We have a question from Arjun. The question is addressed to Dr. Pai, sir. Sir, is it possible to share the resources that your esteemed institute have? I am in need of a temperature logger for a project.
Yeah, definitely. Whatever whatever we have in the institute, that can be provided to you. You can contact me. Definitely, whatever that we can support you, definitely we will.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Rudy KV. There are so much uncertainty in the weather forecasting models.
I think we have taken up that question, Safiq. Maybe Shruti has asked a different question.
Yes, sir. I have received the answer for that. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have posed a different question as well, Shruti. Do you want me to read it out, or you can ask the question too?
Sir, I can ask.
Yeah, please.
Sir, actually, what I want to ask is, it is evolved in recent COP26 that carbon neutrality is one of the solutions for us to control the climate change. So, and also Kerala is also trying to move towards that path. But we have the example from Sri Lanka that they have tried to imbibe this, try to avoid this chemical fertilizers completely, and it affected their food security badly. So here I just want to know that how much we, the Kerala, is prepared to transfer to a carbon neutrality path, and do really our government of Kerala support or opt for this carbon neutrality path by risking our economy? Like in some extent, it definitely risk, I feel so. What is our stand? That's what I just want to know now.
Shall I give some briefing, Sudhir?
Please, sir, please.
Government of Kerala also is seriously considering about establishing a carbon neutrality. At least there is a committee, CM has made Chief Minister has appointed a committee to look into it, and the committee had 1 or 2 sittings over. And our target is towards the 2050, at least we should attain what India has targeted for 2070. We have some plus point. Earlier, we were telling, because of the geographical nature of our land, we are suffering, etc. But here, one thing is the carbon coming to the atmosphere is mainly from 3 sources. One is energy production from thermal power stations. Second is automobile vehicles, which is running through the road, and then industry. In our case, the energy production by thermal power station is 0. Though we get all the energy from thermal power stations and purchasing, the production centers are all in other states. We are users. So in our state, the carbon emission from the energy production factories is 0. That way we are escaped. Second thing is the industries. Industries also, number of industries which are emitting carbon gases to the atmosphere, we have only very little numbers, especially the steel plant and cement plant, such a kind of plants only is putting the carbon emissions. But in our case, the problem is mainly on transportation vehicles. That point has been taken into very seriously. Converting the present system of fuels, what we are using, to electric vehicles. But that is not a very simple thing. As we are telling, you convert all petrol, diesel vehicles to the electric vehicles is not a solution. If you look deep into it, even for a battery operated vehicle, what we call today is a EV, electric vehicle, battery operated vehicle also need electricity produced from thermal power stations. See, when you look seriously, the battery requires charging. For that charging, again, energy, electricity is required. That electricity comes from thermal power station. If it is coming from thermal power stations, definitely we are not solving the problem of carbon emission. We are only shifting from one side to another side. That is why now seriously it is thought the energy production should be totally be stopped from thermal power stations. And after some time, I can tell you, after 20 or 30 years, no new license will be given to start. Even now, globally, there is a restriction. Thermal power stations using petroleum products and coal is totally banned. No funding from banks and other financial institutions. So the production of electricity power will be through only solar, wind, wave, bio, and such kind of things. That is what we are doing it now. Now there is a major thinking. Ultimately, when we want to have energy from non-conventional methods, totally, that is the target. Not from coal or petroleum burning, fossil fuels burning. Totally, when you want to convert, it come to a point of solar energy based systems. But the problem is all these non-conventional energy sources like solar, wave, wind, etc. is not continuous. It is intermittent. We don't get a continuous supply of 24 hours, 365 days. We don't have it. So we should have a method for storing the energy. That is why now the hydrogen as a fuel has come as a great technology. Now globally, lot of scientists and institutions are putting large amount of money is invested for hydrogen production. Hydrogen production not by the conventional methods from petroleum fractions. Hydrogen productions by electrolysis of water. And the energy required for electricity required for electrolysis of water should be from non-conventional systems. So maybe from solar or wind or wave or such kind of system. This is what now being addressed. Hydrogen, once you are making, we can make electricity from combination of hydrogen and oxygen in a device called fuel cell. Now, hydrogen fuel cells have become the talk scientifically in all energy field. All experts are talking about the hydrogen fuel cell technology. In the hydrogen fuel technology, it's a very simple thing, because once you give electricity to hydrogen, to water, electrolysis take place by splitting into hydrogen and oxygen, absorbing electricity. In the same way, this hydrogen, if we can store in tankers or cylinders, etc., that can be used in a small device called fuel cell, where an electrodes will be there with a membrane, with the catalyst, etc. Oxygen is available in the atmosphere sufficiently. The combination of oxygen and hydrogen takes place inside the cell. The product being water, and electricity is produced. This electricity can be used continuously. This is the system now in truck, fuel, buses, etc. Elsewhere in the countries, people use it. They already been used the fuel cell system, hydrogen fuel cell system in the automobile vehicles. So ultimately, it is going to be only final, something like that. But even like earlier question was there about the nuclear energy system in the large transport vehicles have been thought, but a lot of issues are there with respect to safety aspect. So the safety clearances for that has not been given by the the committees looking into that system. So carbon neutral system now here in Kerala, we are enforcing maximum, especially our transport department is enforcing and spending money for converting our conventional diesel petrol vehicles to slowly to electrical vehicles with the battery operated vehicles with the charging stations. Not only charging stations at frequent intervals in the national highway and other interior places, and swapping of battery also is being considered now. So because people may not have time to spend for 2-3 hours of the charging, etc. So that now the department is thinking of making a standard shape and fitting system for all batteries. So that you can go to the like petrol bunk type of places there, you can exchange the battery, and another battery with the same capacity, etc. will easily get fitted into your vehicle. That's also being thought of it. Slowly, maybe in the coming 10, 20, 25 years, almost the petrol diesel consumption will come to very less. That is why in our state, implementing the carbon neutrality will be comparatively easier than the other states where a lot of thermal power stations and factories are there. This is a scenario in nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sir, can I have a question?
Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
Sir, my name is Roshan Thomas Dominic. I am doing my MSc in zoology in Marivanis College, Trivandrum.
Yeah, please pose the question now.
Sir, my question is, how can the artificial intelligence will help in the field of life sciences in research and other areas?
See what is artificial intelligence? That is what we need to understand basically. This is there are various models, like we develop systems which can learn from existing data and then make new decisions. So that is one way of putting it. So such systems can look at the data that is available previously and then create new models to solve new problems. If they put it in a simple way, such systems can be developed for solving any kind of problems. That is what Dr. Aravindan was also explaining to us, how you can change the sequencing of genes to address some diseases, how you can cure cancer. You would have heard of CRISPR, which is a gene editing tool. So such tools can be developed to change the sequencing of genes. So this is a very fundamental technique that can be used in life sciences for various kinds of other applications. So this is how it can be simply put in life sciences. Then in the development of drugs, drugs for various diseases also. Various such computing models and AI-driven techniques can be used. So does that answer the question?
Can I just add a little thing?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Ravindran.
Even in diagnostics, medical diagnostics also, this is, see now a lot of areas of diagnostic medicine is very subjectively human dependent, where we actually sit and like my job as a pathologist is to look through a microscope and decide on whether somebody has this disease or not, when somebody has a cancer or not. And we all know that it can be fallible. It can be very, very fallible thing, this kind of subjective decisions. So can we make algorithms and learning tools by which we can, by continuous input and learning, can machines actually take over lots of, not completely replace, but take a lot of this decision making. In diagnostic radiology, for example, this has come in a big way. AI systems are now diagnosing X-rays and other things without a radiologist. So pathology so far, luckily for us, machines are still far away to replace us. But this is the way that things are going. Even for a pathologist, it will be a great aid actually for decision making. So this kind of things are one big area, very, very large area, where in diagnostic medicine, AI systems will come in a big way.
I think I can add to that now. There was one project supported by the council with IITM, the Trivandrum. They came up with an algorithm to diagnose breast cancer from the CT scans.
That's right.
Yeah, which is a successful project. I think Saji, you should would know about it, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes, in fact, also nationally, there is a company, a startup company called Niramaya, which actually is very, very popular in this space. And the startup mission is along with various cancer institutions in the state. I think that's Cancer Grid. It's actually setting up an incubator in Cochin, primarily looking at use of AI tools, which Dr. Arvindran has mentioned about the diagnostic part of it, and creating solutions with various agencies as such. So there is a substantive amount of scope there in Digital University and early IIITMK and Digital University. We also have a course on ecological informatics, where AI is applied in the context of ecology. And wherever you have large data coming in, you can actually have AI applications coming there. So that's putting in a much simpler manner as such.
To add further, you can also make use of AI for clinical trials. You can make use of AI for drug development. Yes, there are lots of applications, as big data. Where there is big data, you can use AI.
That's exactly what happens in RT-PCR test and all, are the chain reaction.
Exactly, yes.
It's like
I have one thing to add. See, there are techniques that have come in to find out the diseases. Say, for example, oral cancer and cervical cancer, it can be detected by a handheld Raman spectrometer. That can be put, and optical fibers can be sent to the oral cavity, and every region can be scanned. They're all artificial intelligence is made use of. And then you can identify the disease area and also the disease. It has not come in a big way in our country, but it is there, it is practiced outside.
So, Rajiv Gandhi Institute in Trivandrum, they are working in that direction. The director of the Rajiv Gandhi Institute in Trivandrum, using Raman for cancer. Raman for,
he knows it. He knows it. There was a project to develop such a instrument in India. I was also one of the experts when it was sanctioned, but it has not come out. The instrument has not come out.
Even for drug development, for example, coronavirus is a new thing. We know that spike protein has such and such a structure, three-dimensional structure of a spike protein. So if we have a big database of various molecules, organic molecules from our pharmacopoeia, including Ayurveda, many kinds of plant and plant alkaloids and so on. They can scan these kind of databases to look for the best fitting molecules which can be, so we can shortlist molecules which can be tried out for their efficacy in this. So for all this, you use this kind of AI systems.
So there is no limit by which AI can be used for clinical applications.
As
Like
Dr.
combining the expertise of various doctors, you can develop systems. At the beginnings of AI use in medicine was a simple expert system like Mycene in early 90s. It was used for clinical diagnosis, which was just a decision support system. But now, with more powerful AI tools and techniques, it can be used for several applications.
So GM Nair, you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to add up what Dr. Sabu Thomas has said. See, the clinical trials, see, it's a big data being generated. Thousands and thousands of people are put into the trial, and the data management, and then the data management is very important if you want to complete the clinical trials on a record time. The other thing is that the drug development, as is already being said, especially repurposing the drug. See, this is also very important because unless you have the data, clinical data, you can repurpose it for something else. For example, we have repurposed many drugs for the COVID-19 system. So for all these matters, even for artificial intelligence combined with that of robotics to make humanoids, even there also you can make human-like structures, organisms, based on the artificial intelligence and all. So I think the application of AI in life sciences is great, and I'm sure that it's going to tremendously, not only in diagnosis, in data management, as well as making valuable things by which you can make humanoids. They can perform things which human beings cannot do. That's what is important. Radiation-based kind of things and all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, in connection with this question, we got another question. How artificial intelligence will help in vaccine development? Is it 100% successful?
Dr. Aravindan may answer. Vaccine development, the data management, you need to specifically, as I said, clinical trials. Maybe that in the case of many of those vaccines developed for COVID-19, we haven't gone through the complete clinical trials. It was just because the situation demanded to have the vaccine, and maybe that it is tried on to people, and then the clinical trial was done over there. So vaccine development, the data management is very important. The understanding of the genomic. See, for example, vaccine development, you need to have complete genomic data. The Institute of Integrated Biology and in Delhi, Dr. Vinod Skaria is managing the entire genomic data, and the data collection and management is very important because it is helping in the development of vaccines in different places. So I think in vaccine development also, maybe that Professor Aravindan can substantiate.
Ultimately,
The number of steps could be reduced by organic chemists, pharmaceutical chemists, organic chemists, the number of steps could be reduced.
Yes.
If you combine theory, modeling, and simulation and AI, normally a drug development takes 15 years, 10 to 15 years. And if you use AI platform and theory, modeling, and simulation, you can do it much faster.
That's true.
So basically, ultimately, the vaccine, the function of a vaccine, how it works, the antibodies or the T cells. So antibodies depend upon the three-dimensional structure of the antibody, the site where it binds to the antigen, these 3D structures and the target antigen, how well it fits. So you can, instead of trying out in a lot of human patients, you can shortlist by generating antibodies and studying them, the 3D fits. All this can be done by computers much better. And you can do that to screen ultimately what goes for a clinical trial.
Yeah.
And you can shorten the whole process.
I think that's enough.
Thank you, sir. Abhirami SP has got a question. Abhirami?
You online?
Abhirami?
Yes.
You can go to the next.
Not able to hear.
Yeah, Abhirami has come. Abhirami, we are not able to listen to you. Your audio is having a problem.
We will take the next question. Is there
Maybe
any noticeable...
probably Abhirami can type the question in the chat box. We'll take the next question, Shafiq. Yeah.
Sir, is there any noticeable prevailing changes in the meteorological parameters recorded after the effect of these extreme events?
Dr. Pai.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so there are locally, there are changes. As we know that though when we spoke about global change, the climate change is a global, the impact is a local actually. So definitely locally there has been several instances when extreme events has increased. But as far as Kerala is concerned, even still now, as I said, though there are extreme events has been observed, there are not like record type things has not happened in the rainfall events is concerned. But temperature in many places it has been seen that because of urbanization, etc., temperature has in many places has given a record in recent years. I think that will make sense. So that's fine. My answer.
Yeah, Dr. Pai, that was a good answer. Shafiq, do we have additional questions? I don't see anything in the chat box.
I want to add something, because there was a question carbon neutral. I want to add something which I cannot speak. There's a lot of interest now worldwide, because, circular economy, biorefinery. And if you look at some of the DST project, there's a lot of interest on biomass transformation. There are now companies manufacturing plastics and monomers from biomass. So utilization of biomass gives a lot of opportunities. I have many projects on biomass, making advanced materials from biomass. So this way also we can reduce the carbon footprint. Biomass transformation that gives lots of opportunities. Countries like India, Brazil, China, we produce a lot of biomass, but they are not really utilized. Even use of carbon dioxide for advanced functional materials, manufacturing of advanced materials. There was a big DST call. Use carbon dioxide for making functional materials. So these are all very important steps being taken by Government of India to reduce carbon footprint, and that gives a lot of opportunities.
We have another question from Surdi KV. Is it possible for us to develop dedicated weather forecasting model in Kerala scenario?
Yeah. Actually, when you talk about weather forecasting, when we can speak about Kerala, the weather and climate of Kerala are also impacted by weather patterns and climate pattern from the other part of the globe. So therefore, when we run a model, we have to run a global model. It is very essential. But then using those data, we can specifically more by post-processing the model data, we can prepare forecast very specific to requirement of the Kerala. And also there are several global models nowadays. Several global models are being run in different parts of the globe. Already IMD is collecting all those data from various, in addition to IMD themselves is running the model. So those models can be brought together, and forecasting scenario can be predicted, weather forecasting scenario, weather scenario in Kerala can be specifically done. So already, many agencies are working on that. So ICCs also will, work on that.
I would like to add here, see, the weather forecast models primarily are numerical solutions to the differential equation describing the atmospheric processes. So essentially, the quality of the solution depends on what kind of solution technology you use, and also the initial and boundary conditions which subscribe the governing equations. So what happens in different models is the parameterization schemes of the model, initial and boundary conditions, all these things may be slightly different. As Dr. Pai said, these are again no random process, so people may perceive it as a different kind of situation and then develop different kinds of situations. So that is why we have different kind of models available. Now, what is the possible solution to this kind of uncertainty is you use an ensemble of models, then take an appropriate solution from these ensembles and use it for your decision making. In fact, I should also mention that Institute of Climate Change Studies have set up the weather research forecast model of the Colorado State University of Boulder, USA, for the Kerala, but not only looking at the Kerala domain, but as Dr. Pai said, no, it has to be set up for a larger domain, but you crop it for the Kerala domain. And the weather forecast is being developed for 3 days in advance every day. But we are not an authority to disseminate to the public. Public warning can be given only by the IMD. So we are using it for planning purpose and the research purpose.
Okay, thank you, sir.
We have a question from Amida Jacob. It's like she would like to know about the application and current trends in the field of nutrigenomics.
Nutrigenomics is a emerging area. This is an offshoot of what has happened in genomics. When you understand the genomic setup of an individual, you will understand not only in the human beings, but in any individual. Once you have that, like the pharmacogenomics, you have nutrigenomics coming in. The nutritional requirement based on your genomic setup. So you may be able to develop nutraceuticals based on that. Nutraceuticals in the sense that the health promoting nutritional compounds being developed. But then when it is based on the genomic data that is available. So for example, as we have been discussing with the artificial intelligence data management, we have a lot of genomic data available. So individual requirements, see, for example, what is lacking in me can be understood if you have a profile of the genomics as well as understanding the complete things. I think we have this connection being established between the genomics and the nutritional requirements. This is something highly advanced area in the nutraceutical development. There are many companies where they are trying to pinpoint, especially nutraceutical development with that of nanotechnology being combined together to form genomics. So understanding the personalized process of nutrition requirement, I think that is the one which I understand. I think Dr. Aravindan can substantiate it.
Yeah. Two things are here. One, of course, the individual genome, and particularly in relation to things like cardiovascular risk. People are investigating the effect of various nutrients and how it impacts on the genomic profile. People having different genomic profiles vis-a-vis the cardiovascular risk, etc. That is one whole area. Is looking at the individual genomes and the impact of these nutrients. Yet another very promising area, which may be in future very important, is that the effect of nutrients in your microbiome. For example, in the gut microbiome, we know that the gut microbiomes have impact on many of the health problems, whether it is gastrointestinal disease or skin disease and many other diseases. The microbiome, even neurological disease, psychological disorders, and microbiome is important. So what is the impact of various kinds of food and food substances on this microbiome and its changes? So it's again very much big data based kind of research with all kinds of people can dabble in this, and relatively easier to investigate also. You don't need very large invasive kind of studies in many of these things.
I think in this juncture, I would also add up the human diversity genomics. You know, it's now we have a common genome available, like what has happened during the Human Genome Project. That's not enough. We need to have a diversity analysis. So in that case, the pangenomics is going to help. In a particular species, what are the kinds of common factors available? What is my uniqueness? What are those things that are unique to me? What I'm sharing with the individual. So maybe when you go in for developing nutritional components for individualistic applications, then I think it is necessary. You need to have big data analyze, genomic data analyze, the nutritional products that are available, you know, see, and how it's impact. See, for example, the program which was taken by Dr. M.S. Vellithan on the genomic aspect of some of those Ayurvedic drugs, you know, he has a big program on that. See how exactly, so like for example, churnas affect the genomic process. So that also is coming in the way of in the process of nutrigenomics, where we need to have everything that you, whether you are going for the indigenous medical systems or maybe the allopathic medical systems, how exactly, or maybe the nutritional components that are required. So most of those nutritional deficiency also can be solved through amalgamating all the data that is available. This can add up.
One more point, let me add to this. Recently, government has formed a expert working committee for studying in detail to the human microbiomes.
Oh, yeah, correct.
Dr. Sabu Thomas, RGBC senior scientist there, is the chairman of the committee, and there are members from microbiology department, veterinary science, and related such fields. Has submit the report by this month, and there will be further action on more studies on human microbiomes.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Anisa Ayub has a question. Can you suggest any course on artificial intelligence for the healthcare professionals, either online or offline?
Read it once again.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not aware of.
What is it? You just
Is there any course on artificial
Artificial
intelligence?
intelligence for healthcare.
Healthcare.
I'm also not aware of any specific course. But then I think when you get specialized in an artificial intelligence course, data science or something, the healthcare becomes an application of it.
Exactly. Probably.
I don't think any course will be specifically designed for an application rather than building up the fundamentals of the technique.
Courses on public health also would have this component being added.
In the Udemy and Udacity, there are short courses available in this space. So you can actually look at some of these MOOC platforms. I don't know about Coursera, but I am sure that there is a course I've seen long back in Udacity where AI on healthcare is there. So you can actually go through the detail and find out. So these are all very small nano type of courses. If you are already a healthcare professional, you will be able to see how this can actually be applied.
We have one more question. Now, as part of the sustainability and increasing food production and dietary diversification, we are promoting millets and many food groups. Is there any transition from the traditional diet?
Now, I think maybe there may be answers coming up, but what I say is that you cannot just avoid traditional foods, See, their nutritional value has been time proven. But what is being said, the lesser known food crops, See, there are some of tuber crops available. There are a number of other relatives of rice, like, what you know about many of those traditional rices, even grown in Kerala. They have high medicinal values, nutraceutical values. So what is important is that when you go in for looking at newer food components, it is necessary that you can supplement your dietary requirement by looking into the lesser used ones. So in that case, millets also come in. We don't use much of millets in our food. Even I say about the tuber crops, or maybe many of those fruits, lesser known fruits, which have high nutritional values, vitamin C, carotenoids, anthocyanins. All these are to be, but then it is not to divert from it. It is just going to be supplements which are needing. And so maybe that many nutraceutical products would come in through that. Dr. Aravindan can supplement. Sustainability is a process. Sir, Dr. Aravindan, you want to add something?
Sorry.
Maybe adding up newer ones rather than the traditional foods, So there are umpteen examples where new food products are being added up. They are all lesser known food products. They are not being practiced. They are not being used. But then what is important is that you cannot just incorporate anything as a food unless you understand the allergenicity as well as toxicity values. You need to analyze all this. And once they cross all those barriers, that anything can be added, which will add up the nutritional requirement of a human being. But I again caution that anything to be added. For example, the Lathyrus sativus, Lathyrism, it's a neurotoxin. The tribals use it, but they know how to evade the neurotoxin. So like that, there are several things where there could be allergy, there could be toxicity, and some of them are poisonous too, but their nutritional value is very high. So you need to have a comprehensive analysis of the whole thing to find out what are those things which can be used, consumed by human beings, evading all those hazards that could be attributed to that. So for that matter, lesser known food products, food crops are coming in a big way, but they are not replacement to the traditional food and the conventional food.
And the strength of traditional foods is that it's been tried out over a long time in a particular population. So anything new, of course, has to go through all the kinds of studies in that population.
I'll add one thing. Sir, millets, they are not very popular in Kerala. That is main problem. Yeah. Probably finger millet may be the most popular, and sorghum. So these are not cultivated largely in Kerala. And see, if you take the case of other states where rainfall cultivation is quite common, in such areas we go for finger millet, especially in Karnataka, we know that. And anyway, millet cultivation is promoted by various governments, and 2023, not 2022, 2023 is declared as the International Year of Millets. So probably in India also so many programs may come up. And that is good that if you are able to include some amount of millets in diet, it's well and good, but it is not possible to replace our traditional diet with millets at all. Thank you.
I also would like to add that traditional foods are being tested for centuries.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Less carbohydrate.
Yeah. No, we are not able to hear to you, sir. I mean, your voice is
He's
breaking.
traveling.
Yes. Can you
Since
hear me
he's
now? Can
traveling.
you hear me?
Yeah, please.
So my suggestion is, traditional foods have been tested for ages. So I think we should eat more of fruits, nuts, vegetables, and less meat and fish. More millets, because we take a lot of hard carbohydrates. So that could be one of the reasons why, Kerala, we have many diabetic patients. Millets is a good choice. But new foods have to be tested very carefully.
Carefully. That's important, sir.
Thank you, sir. Abhirami has a question on the role of biotechnology in viral DNA sequencing. About the role of biotechnology.
See, we have discussed about this. Genomics is a big area. We are practicing a genomic revolution. Viral genomic sequencing, if you have to make diagnostic platforms, if you have to make vaccine platforms, you need to understand the virus per se. So any virus that is coming up. So for example, we have complete genomic analysis of the Zika virus, the COVID-19 Delta variant, Omicron, as well as the Nipah virus. So all these are being sequenced very well. Now these days, no drug can go to the market, no vaccine can be developed unless you have a complete understanding. For that matter, I'm sure in Kerala, we have several agencies this being, but in a large scale, the complete genome sequence of the COVID-19 and its variants are available with Integrated Genomics and Biotechnology, IGIB in New Delhi. I also said about Dr. Vinod Karia, who is a Keralite, who is spearheading this genomic data pooling, understanding using artificial intelligence, making a complete analysis of it. So the moment you have as I said, there are vulnerable points in the viral genome, which could be hotspots for mutations. So understanding those one and what could be the mutation that can happen and by which what can happen subsequently, all can be revealed only if you have a complete sequence. These days, sequencing is not a big problem. You have high-end sequencing available. The nanopore technology, Illumina sequencing, at the nick of the time, you can go for analyzing it. So that's how. But the only thing is that you need to have samples being made available. So in this case, COVID-19, all the testing centers, when they collect the samples, the government of India, the government of Kerala have agreed together to give the data to the sequencing agencies so that you have a complete pool of genomic data available. I'm sure that another variant that is coming, you will be able to detect it very fast because that's the power we have. So biotechnologies, most important area is genomics, and for that, genome sequencing is very important, not only for the viruses, but also for all the other organisms. See, for example, we need to, all the pathogenic organisms, we need to have complete genomic data available. So for that matter, I'm sure there are several agencies where this is being done. But of late, the most important agency that comes into the picture, the IGIB in New Delhi. If you look at their profile, you will understand that the kind of mammoth data they have generated. It's not just data, but then it is being vetted, filtered, and booked individually to each of the variants and what are the variants. They understand, as Dr. Aravindan has said, the diagnostic process is very important because if there is a mutation that has occurred in the primer area of what is being available, the virus does not get detected. So it is necessary that the primers are to be developed on the variations that has occurred, and then only you will be able to go for predicting or maybe detecting the presence of a virus in a complete population. So biotechnology, as I said, biotechnology, as I said in the beginning, is the science for tomorrow, today, and it's going to make a big, opportunities for making many of those things that is necessary for sustaining human life. So for that matter, genomics is very important, and viral genomics is very important for the matters I have suggested. Dr. Aravindan can handle.
Many of the viral diseases are right now undiagnosed. So there are many kinds of encephalitis, for example, the brain fevers, various types. We still don't know what actually has caused. We just call them viral encephalitis without knowing which virus it is. So many viral diseases like dengue and chikungunya, whatever it is, the traditional way of diagnosing now is to look for the antibodies. IgM antibodies to look at and diagnose many infectious diseases. This is how it is done. Now, this is now slowly replaced by RT-PCR, the PCR-based molecular biology techniques. Now, with COVID, lots of PCR machines have come all over in Kerala. And now, after COVID is gone, dengue and chikungunya, everything will be diagnosed by PCR. And what is going to come next is sequencing. So selected areas can be, even now in Calicut Medical College and RGCB, we are looking at the spike protein, and selected areas of the virus are being sequenced for diagnosing Omicron and various other variants. So whole genome, whole virus can be sequenced. So sequencing is going to be the next platform, and with next generation sequencing, NGS technologies becoming cheaper and cheaper. What has happened with RT-PCR now in COVID time, this is going to be repeated, and in very few years time, sequencing is going to be a diagnostic test done in many laboratories. So you would need a lot of people who are adept at sequencing, who are good at bioinformatics, for interpreting data. Sequencing alone is not enough. Interpreting this data is more important. So this kind of space is going to open up for a lot of people in these areas of genomics and in bioinformatics, in diagnostic medicine.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you, sir. Faisal Rahman has asked a very long question. Can Faisal, can you ask the question directly to the experts?
Okay, sir. Sir, I'm an MSc student. I need to know, microplastics are now a global crisis. New researchers found microplastics even in human fetus. In countries like Sweden and Japan, they developed a culture of safe disposal of plastics. How can we develop such a culture of safe disposal of plastics or manipulate our children with these good qualities? I think it's a multidisciplinary, maybe it is environmental and psychologically related question.
It's a philosophical question, I guess.
Yeah, can I take that question?
Please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Now, as I said in the beginning, I saw that section on social responsibility in science in your Science Congress. I think that this is something that we need to increase. Even when we're talking about the knowledge economy, I felt that many of the scientists work in their own silos, and I think it is very important that like the question he asked about the microplastics, as to how the kind of technology we do actually affects society. We don't, I was just looking at it. For example, there was a very nice quote by Hippocrates, who said that, that man belongs to nature, but nature doesn't belong to man. And somehow science and technology seems to have forgotten that. We have, for example, we have used knowledge that of the laws of nature, and we have used that to kind of control or dominate nature. But I think the time has changed. I think there's a new paradigm needed, like what the question is. I think the question is very relevant. We need a new paradigm of how we can, science and technology can lead to sustainable development through, while working with nature. Instead of dominating nature. I think this is something, and I think in order to do this, as the student rightly pointed out, our education system, the scientists should also, in that system of education, we need to include systems like ethics and understanding of how science and technology can impact nature. This is something that we may have to look at in all aspects of our educational system, because in the hurry to develop technology, we sometimes forget the kind of detrimental aspects, and very few scientists actually worry about these things. So I think the question is very important, and I think we need to incorporate this kind of awareness in scientific education, because I know that in order to do your science, you need to become an expert you need to develop your own area. But along with that, I think the ethics of doing science and how the technologies that we develop can actually impact nature is something that we need to include in our curriculum and worry about. This microplastics is, of course, one of the areas, and I mean, it is right now, of course, we don't know the extent to which it is damaging to health. We know that we are finding microplastics in sea animals. It is ending up in the sea, and but the toxicity levels of that is still not fully understood. But as I said, there can be long-term implications of many of the technologies that we develop, and I think that we need to be looking at this in a more holistic manner. I think that's what I have to say.
To add on that, I want to say a few words. According to United Nations, forecast in 2040, in the sea will have more number of microplastics than fish. And this is a big menace. One way, what Dr. Das suggested, our way of living, we have to really, avoid all one-time use of plastics. That's very important. And if you want to remove microplastics, the technologies, you can use carbon filters. You can use reverse osmosis. These are the two ways you can remove microplastics from water. But, we have to take immediate steps, to our way of life. I think you have to avoid one-time use of plastics. Plastics are being used extensively. Use plastics for functional applications.
We have been concentrating on the macroplastics, so microplastics have been neglected. And we have now realized the need for understanding them, studying them, because most of the aquatic systems are worst affected by this. And that definitely will come back to us through a food chain. So the worst condition that is being created to the aquatic system, the sea or in the freshwater system, is going to be controlled, as you said, if there are a filtering mechanism. But even otherwise go unnoticeably into the systems, even if you take all the kinds of precautions. So the one way you can do is to do away with plastics.
See, may I add to that? See, there is a report in the Optics and Photonics magazine of Optical Society of America. The whole of the ocean floor is full of microplastics.
Yeah, that's what
ocean floor. Most of the ocean floor is full of microplastics. That has become a global phenomenon now. Not only in our water bodies, everywhere it is there. They have reported like that. We have to have some social responsibility. Only then we can solve it.
Yeah. See, one thing that is happening globally is that effects of what is called endocrine disrupting agents, chemicals, which can interfere with your hormone systems. And some cancers are due to this endocrine disruption, particularly breast cancer, prostate cancer. All these prostate cancer globally, it is increasing. You cannot just explain it by increase in age or anything. There is a sustained increase all over the world. Then the sperm count in human beings are decreasing. Again, endocrine disruption could be a cause. In small male children, cryptorchidism, testis not descending, the incidence is increasing. So there is something in our atmosphere that is building up that is producing these effects. And many fingers point to, among others, microplastics also to this. So it's a very, very important thing to consider, I think.
Even the additives being used in plastics, that also quite dangerous in a long run.
Yes, Shafiq, probably we can take it's already we have 3 hours spent on this, so maybe we can take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll try to conclude.
We have no more questions, sir. We have
Sir,
covered.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, please. Someone wants to ask a question. Najia.
Sir, I'm Najia. MSc Nutrition and Dietetics student from St. Joseph College, Apgula. Sir, will the dietary diversification change our microbiota, disrupt our metabolism, and lead to any health issues?
Can
Dr.
I
Arvind,
try first? Yeah.
please.
We really do not know what is the real impact of it. But we definitely know that many of the new diseases are related to the intestine and our gut and what is happening there. There is one of the most common renal kidney diseases is a disease called IgA nephropathy. IgA nephropathy, a kind of antibody molecule, the IgA molecule gets altered, and this is actually antibodies are developed against that. It gets deposited in the kidney. It gets deposited in the kidney and produces a disease. So now they have how it occurs, nobody knew. Now we know that this is something happening in the gut. Mucosal antigens are actually responsible for this altered IgA molecules. And this in turn may be related to the gut microbiomes. It's more common in Eastern population, Indians, Chinese, and we know that every ethnic population have their own kind of, over period of time, they have their own food patterns. So their own kind of microbiomes develop on that. And these are, we know that these are interlinked, but we know very little about that. So this is a huge, huge area of research, potential research, where we can investigate many of the diseases and the impact of microbiome, diet, and so on these diseases.
Dr. Sudhir,
Sir.
Can I add one point to Dr. Suresh Das, the ethics in science and technology?
Please, sir, please.
Nobody bothers about the ethics we have to follow in the science and technology nowadays, especially in the new generation. I have an experience, to the US when we are going through the supermarket, etc., in the fruit stall, genetically modified fruits plenty are there. You can see tomato up to a pumpkin size, they have made it there now. And they have a special fruit. When I asked my boy, he told it is a crossbreeded fruit is between grapes and apple. They call it grapple. Very interesting. And the size will be almost like an apple, and once you touch it, the texture will be like grapes. Like that, plenty of genetically modified fruits are all coming. When I was discussing with an expert in this particular field, and he was telling, a very intelligent fellow working in that field, he developed a very peculiar type of tomato having the taste of fish. Just to look at, a tomato with the taste of fish, you develop and give it, what a kind of things people do it. Similar things, the most intelligent people do, unethical thing, which